The air smelled of rain and wildflowers as Elowen wandered deeper into the uncharted forest, her boots brushing softly against the moss-laden earth. The path had long vanished behind her, swallowed by ferns and roots, yet something in her heart urged her forward, a pull she could neither name nor resist. For 3 days, she had traveled beyond her village, chasing the old stories her grandmother once whispered by firelight, tales of a hidden valley where an ancient tree waited, holding a song so powerful it could heal the broken world. But the forest was different now. The deeper she went, the quieter it became. No birdsong, no rustling wind, just silence, the kind that listened back. Elowen paused at the crest of a ridge, brushing her auburn hair from her face. And then she saw it, stretched beneath a veil of mist. The Vale of Whispering Winds opened before her. A great hollow of silver fog drifted over emerald fields, where ancient stones leaned together like slumbering giants. In the heart of the valley stood a single towering tree, its roots sprawling like rivers, its branches tangled in forgotten skies. The sight stole her breath. It was exactly as her grandmother had described, and yet, it felt lonelier than the stories ever told. She approached the valley slowly, each step sinking into soft moss. The air grew cooler, carrying a strange, faint vibration, as though the ground itself hummed beneath her boots. It wasn't a song, not yet, but an echo, a memory of one. Her fingers brushed the trunk of a nearby birch as she whispered, almost to herself. Is this where the songs went to die, or to wait? Somewhere far above, the sun broke through the mist for a heartbeat, spilling a shaft of golden light across the valley. The ancient tree seemed to glimmer faintly, as though answering her question with a promise. I am here. I have always been here. Elowen's chest tightened. She had found it, the tree that waited. But even from this distance, she sensed something strange. Its vast roots were cracked and dry, as though time itself had forgotten to water them. Its leaves hung still, untouched by wind, and though she strained to hear, she found no birds, no insects, no life around it. A shadow passed across her thoughts. The stories also spoke of a curse, of a song stolen long ago. And yet, something deep inside whispered that the song was not lost. It was waiting, for her. Elowen stepped forward, her heart pounding. The closer she drew to the tree, the stronger the low, vibrating hum became. It thrummed through her boots, into her bones, and finally, into her breath. It wasn't frightening, it was calling her name. She dropped her satchel at the tree's roots and placed her palm against its bark. For a moment, the world stilled completely. Then, a faint sound, like a sigh of wind through glass. Elowen, she gasped and stumbled back. The voice was soft, tired, and impossibly ancient. She searched the valley, but there was no one. The sound had come from the tree itself. Before she could speak, a cold breeze swept across the vale, carrying the smell of rain and something older, something wild. In the distance, she thought she saw shadows shifting where the mist thickened, but when she blinked, they were gone. Elowen shivered. She didn't know yet that this was the beginning, that this tree, this song, and this silent valley would change everything. Tonight, she would camp at the roots of Elarin. Tomorrow, she would begin to listen. And somewhere deep within the earth, the tree that waited stirred for the first time in centuries. Elowen woke to the soft hush of drifting mist, her breath rising in pale clouds as dawn crept across the Vale of Whispering Winds. She had dreamed of songs she could not remember, melodies woven with starlight and water, vanishing the moment she opened her eyes. Her blanket was damp from the night air, but her spirit felt strangely alive, as though the earth beneath her had whispered secrets while she slept. The tree stood before her, vast and motionless, its tangled roots like ancient rivers carved into the ground. Its towering trunk disappeared into a crown of leaves so high they dissolved into the silver fog above. This was Elarin, the tree that waited. Elowen placed her hand upon its bark. The surface was rough beneath her fingers, but warm, as if sunlight still lived deep inside. She pressed her ear to the trunk and closed her eyes. At first, there was silence. And then, a vibration, faint and slow, like a heartbeat trapped beneath centuries of wood. Elowen, her breath caught. It was the same soft voice she'd heard yesterday, distant and cracked like old parchment. Who are you? She whispered, her lips close to the bark. But the tree gave no answer. Instead, the hum beneath her palm deepened, spreading through her fingertips, her arm, and into her chest until it filled her with a strange warmth. She felt her pulse matching the rhythm, as though her heart was trying to remember an ancient song she had never learned. Elowen leaned closer, whispering again. "What are you waiting for?" A pause. And then, just barely. The song. Her eyes widened. She wasn't imagining it. But before she could ask more, a sudden breeze swept through the veil, cold and sharp, scattering loose leaves and bending the long grass. The mist thickened, curling around her ankles like smoke, and the tree's warm hum faltered. Elowen. This voice was different, softer, younger. She spun around, searching the shadows between the roots and the stones. That's when she saw it, a faint silver light drifting just beyond her reach, pulsing like a tiny star. The glowing wisp hovered for a moment, then darted behind the tree, vanishing into its roots. Wait! Elowen scrambled after it, kneeling where the light had disappeared. Her fingers brushed the cool earth, and she felt it tremble, ever so slightly, like something beneath the ground had stirred. Then she heard a whisper, softer than breath, carried through the roots. "Find me, before the silence comes." Her heart raced. "Who are you?" This time, the answer came like a sigh through the leaves above. Selune. The name lingered in the air, fragile and weightless, and then, silence again. Elowen sat back against the roots, her thoughts tumbling like falling water. Selune, whoever they were connected to Elarin. Perhaps bound to it. And if the tree was waiting, then maybe Selune held the key to unlocking its forgotten song. But she also remembered her grandmother's warning. Some songs are buried for a reason. Still, Elowen's curiosity burned brighter than her fear. That night, as the last traces of daylight faded from the veil, she built a small fire beneath the tree and whispered to the stars. "I'll find you, Selune. I'll bring the song back." Somewhere deep inside the tree, unseen by mortal eyes, a single rune etched into the ancient bark flickered faintly with silver light, for the first time in hundreds of years. The night was deep and endless, a soft veil of stars scattered across the misty sky. Elowen sat cross-legged beneath the tree that waited, her small fire reduced to glowing embers. The valley was silent except for the slow, steady hum beneath her, the heartbeat of Elarin, ancient and patient. But she couldn't sleep. The whisper from before still echoed in her mind. "Find me, before the silence comes." Who was Selune? And what silence did she mean? Elowen placed her hand against the bark again, closing her eyes and letting the hum of the tree seep into her veins. Slowly, she lowered her forehead to the trunk and whispered, "I'm listening." At first, nothing happened. Then, a shift, subtle but real, as though the ground beneath her exhaled. A thread of warmth seeped into her fingertips, and suddenly the world around her faded away. She was no longer in the veil. She stood beneath a sky of shimmering glass stars, their reflections spinning across rivers of silver water. Music drifted through the air, soft and weightless, made of tones she couldn't name, not words, not sound, but feeling. And at the center of this vision stood Elarin, not as it was now, but young and whole, its crown bursting with golden leaves, alive with birdsong and wind. Its roots glimmered like threads of light, and around it danced figures made of starlight, humming the same song she could almost hear. Elowen. She turned, searching the dreamlike grove, and there she saw it, a figure of silver light, tall and graceful, standing upon the roots. Its form shifted like rippling water, neither fully human nor entirely spirit. "Selune," Elowen whispered, breathless. The figure nodded, its voice soft and melodic, like a note plucked from an ancient harp. The song was stolen. Elowen frowned. Stolen. By who? Selune's form flickered, the light dimming. The keeper of silent seasons, he silenced the rivers, the winds, and the roots. Without the song, the valley sleeps, and soon, the silence will spread. Elowen felt her stomach twist. But if the song is gone, how can we bring it back? Selune knelt before her, pressing a hand of light to her chest. The song lives in pieces, hidden deep within Elarin's heart. The roots hold its memories, but the keeper watches them. If you seek the song, you must be brave enough to walk where the living cannot. Before Elowen could ask what that meant, the vision fractured. Cracks of darkness tore across the glowing sky, shattering stars into fragments. Selune's voice faded into static. Hurry, before the silence. And then she was back beneath the tree, gasping, her palm still pressed to its bark. The fire had died, the mist had thickened, and somewhere deep beneath her feet, she felt the earth trembling faintly, like a warning. She knew now. The song wasn't lost, it was buried. Somewhere beneath the roots, fragments of the melody slept, waiting to be awakened. But to reach them, she would need to enter the places where shadows moved, where the earth itself remembered. As she rose to her feet, a cold breeze rippled through the veil, carrying with it an unfamiliar sound, faint, distant, and haunting. A note of music. Elarin had stirred, and the silence had noticed. Dawn crept softly across the Vale of Whispering Winds, spilling pale gold across the silver mist. Elowen packed her satchel, her thoughts still tangled with Selune's words from the vision. The song lives in pieces, hidden deep within Elarin's heart, walk where the living cannot. She didn't yet understand what Selune meant, but she knew one thing, the first step began at the river. The path wound through twisting roots and crumbling stones, descending deeper into the valley. The mist thickened, curling around her boots, until she began to hear it, the soft trickle of water. But when she reached the riverbank, she froze. Before her stretched a wide, glassy expanse where the river should have been flowing, yet not a single drop moved. The water lay perfectly still, like liquid crystal frozen in place, untouched by wind or time. She crouched at the edge, brushing her fingers across the surface. It was cold as stone. Then she noticed something strange. Beneath the surface, faint shapes shifted, shadows twisting like ribbons, glowing softly, as if trapped beneath the ice. Elowen. The whisper brushed her ear like a sigh, though no one stood behind her. Selune. This river once carried the first melody of the song, Selune's voice murmured, soft and distant. But the keeper's silence bound it. The flow has stopped, and with it, life. Elowen gazed at the motionless water, her heart aching. All along the banks, wildflowers had wilted, their petals stiff with frost. Even the air here felt heavier, as though the silence itself pressed against her lungs. How do I free it? She whispered. Selune's voice trembled, fading in and out like a dying breeze. The fragment sleeps beneath the riverbed, but it is guarded. Guarded by what? A pause. Then, soft and sharp like breaking glass. A memory that does not wish to be remembered. Before Elowen could ask more, the surface of the frozen water rippled. Something vast and shadowed stirred beneath, its glowing outline forming into a shape she couldn't quite name. Not fish, not beast, but something older than words. The surface cracked. A sound, low, deep, and hollow, resonated across the valley, vibrating through her bones. The shadow beneath the water opened two pale silver eyes, and the cold around her deepened until her breath became mist. Elowen stumbled back, clutching the satchel at her side. The thing beneath the river was watching her. Elowen, Selune whispered urgently, do not run. It remembers the song, but it has forgotten how to trust. Summoning every ounce of courage, Elowen knelt at the river's edge again. Her voice trembled as she whispered, I'm here to listen, I want to help. The shadow remained still, silent, unreadable. Then, slowly, the glowing patterns along its body pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. The water beneath her fingertips warmed, and for the briefest moment, the river sighed, as if it longed to move again. Elowen, Selune's voice grew softer, like a distant lullaby, the first fragment lies where the current once began, beneath the stone of echoes. But beware, the keeper's silence lingers there. Elowen stood, her breath steady now despite the cold, and stared toward the upriver cliffs. There, half buried in moss and frost, she saw it, a massive, jagged stone carved with faint glowing runes. She tightened her cloak, her resolve hardening. If the first fragment of the song lay beneath that stone, she would find it, no matter what waited in the depths. Behind her, the frozen river remained still, but beneath its glassy surface, the shadow continued to watch. The wind shifted as Elowen approached the stone of echoes. The mist grew heavier, curling around the jagged rock like pale smoke, and the once distant hum of Elarin's song inside her chest grew quiet, strained, as though something was smothering it. The stone loomed over the riverbank, carved with ancient runes that flickered faintly beneath frost and moss. It pulsed faintly under her fingertips when she touched it, cold and alive, as if breathing. Elowen. Selune's whisper brushed the air like a thread of moonlight. I'm here, she whispered back, her voice steady though her heart raced. You must be careful, Selune murmured. The keeper walks between the seasons. His silence reaches even here. Elowen swallowed hard, scanning the mist around her. What is he? There was a pause, heavy and ancient, before Selune replied. He was once the guardian of songs, chosen to protect the melodies of the earth. But when he sought to control them, the power consumed him. Now, he serves only silence. As Selune's words faded, the air shifted, a deep, unnatural stillness settled over the vale. The birds that had begun to stir in the distance went silent. The faint hum beneath her feet vanished. And then she heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, and hollow. From the mist beyond the Stone of Echoes, a tall figure emerged, cloaked in shadows that rippled like living smoke. His form seemed half-carved from frost and half-born of starlight, but his face was hidden beneath a smooth, obsidian mask etched with spiraling runes. In his hand, he held a staff crowned with a shard of frozen crystal, glowing faintly with cold blue light. Elowen's breath caught. She didn't need Selune to tell her, she knew. The Keeper of Silent Seasons had found her. Elowen of the waking world, his voice was a low rumble, like stones grinding beneath deep waters. You stand where songs are forbidden. She took a small step back but kept her gaze steady. The song belongs to the earth. It doesn't belong to you. The Keeper tilted his head slightly, as if amused. The earth belongs to silence. Music is chaos, it stirs hearts, breaks stillness, defies time. And so, I ended it. Elowen's fingers curled into fists at her sides. Then I'll bring it back. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, slowly, the Keeper lowered his staff, pressing its crystal tip into the frozen ground. The earth shuddered. Cracks spider-webbed across the river's glassy surface, and the shadow beneath the waters stirred violently, releasing a low, mournful sound that reverberated through the valley. The temperature plunged, frost racing up the stones and curling around Elowen's boots. Turn back, the Keeper intoned, his voice colder now, edged with finality. If you awaken the song, you awaken the storms it carries. The silence protects you. Selune's voice hissed softly at Elowen's ear. Do not believe him. The silence protects nothing. It devours. Elowen met the Keeper's empty gaze, her breath white in the icy air. I'm not afraid of the storms, she whispered. I'm afraid of forgetting how to sing. For the briefest moment, something shifted behind the Keeper's mask. Not anger, but something like regret. Then, without another word, he raised his staff and vanished into the mist, dissolving like snow into sunlight. The stillness that followed was heavier than before. Elowen, Selune whispered, soft and urgent, the Keeper knows you now. The fragments will no longer sleep. We must hurry. Elowen nodded, her jaw set. Whatever storms lay ahead, she would face them. The first fragment of the song waited beneath the Stone of Echoes, and nothing, not even silence, would keep her from it. Where the sleeping voices of the past finally awaken. Elowen stood at the heart of the Vale of Whispering Winds, her breath misting in the cool night air. Above her, the stars shone like shattered fragments of 1,000 forgotten dreams, and the ancient tree Elarin loomed, its silver-etched bark glowing faintly under the crescent moon. Selune hovered nearby, her form shimmering like soft moonlight woven into silk. Tonight, she whispered, her voice like a hush carried on the wind, the echoes will awaken. Elowen, Selune continued softly, the tree remembers, but only through voices it has lost. To find the song, you must first listen. And then it began. A low hum rose from the roots beneath Elowen's boots, subtle at first, like the breath of the earth itself. Slowly, it grew into layers of sound, soft voices, broken melodies, fragments of lullabies, and forgotten names carried by unseen winds. The air trembled, and the veil shimmered faintly, as though time itself had loosened its hold. The sound wasn't just around her. It was inside her. Elowen, Elowen. 100 voices called softly, rising and falling like waves upon an endless shore. She clutched her chest, heart pounding, her breath ragged. Selune, what is this? Selune's glowing form flickered slightly, her expression solemn. These are the lost echoes, Selune murmured. The dreams, songs, and hopes trapped within the veil for centuries. The Keeper of Silent Seasons locked them away, believing the world had grown too loud, too careless. But they still live. They still wait. The sound deepened into a haunting chorus, and the wind spiraled around Elarin's trunk, lifting strands of moss and tiny silver leaves into the air. The tree's roots pulsed faintly, glowing with a light that came from deep within the earth. Suddenly, the ground beneath them shivered. From the roots, faint motes of luminescent dust drifted upward, dancing around Elowen like tiny fireflies. They gathered around her satchel, drawn toward the wooden flute she had carried since childhood, the one belonging to her grandmother, who had always sung lullabies she could never remember fully. Elowen, Selune whispered urgently, play. Her hands trembled as she lifted the flute, placing it against her lips. For a heartbeat, there was silence. And then, as she breathed the first hesitant note, the veil answered. The echoes roared awake. 1,000 voices wove themselves into her melody, forming harmonies so beautiful and strange that tears filled her eyes. The winds howled, bending the treetops. The rivers stirred far below. Elarin's silver bark shone brighter than the moon, and the runes carved into its trunk lit up one by one, ancient symbols awakening after centuries of silence. Elowen, Selune cried above the rising song, her voice sharp now, do not stop. The echoes trust you. But even as she played, the shadows shifted at the edge of the veil. A figure stepped forward, tall and cloaked in frost-blue robes, eyes as pale as frozen rivers. The Keeper of Silent Seasons had come. His voice was cold as stone. You meddle with what was silenced for a reason, he hissed, his words scattering frost across the grass. There are songs that should never return. Elowen lowered the flute slightly, chest heaving, but Selune floated forward, her silver light blazing defiantly. Without song, the world dies, Selune said softly but firmly. And without dreams, it forgets how to live. The Keeper's expression darkened, shadows twisting behind him like coiled serpents. Then you force me to choose, he murmured, his hand lifting as a wall of cold swept through the veil. The echoes screamed, their fragile voices nearly silenced once again. But Elowen stepped forward, gripping the flute with both hands. Her fear trembled, but her voice did not. No, she whispered. I came here to help Elarin remember. And I will. She raised the flute again, and as she played, the echoes surged, thousands of forgotten dreams rising together against the Keeper's silence. The veil erupted in a storm of luminous sound, each note a promise, each harmony a memory reborn. And for the first time in centuries, the night belonged to song. Where forgotten feathers hold secrets of the skies. The sun was dipping behind the jagged peaks when Elowen and Selune arrived at the Cliff of Whispering Wings. The entire vale opened beneath them, vast and quiet, bathed in a warm, honey-gold twilight. Here, the winds carried echoes from faraway lands, and legends whispered of a great being who lived at the cliff's edge, a creature called the Feathered Oracle, the oldest keeper of sky-born wisdom. Elowen's breath caught as she stepped carefully across the uneven stones. The ground was littered with feathers of every imaginable shade, sapphire blues, burning golds, silvers shimmering like moonlight. Each one seemed to hum faintly, vibrating with distant memories. Greater than, this is where the songs of the world first rise, Selune murmured, her voice a soft thread against the sighing wind. The oracle has seen every beginning and every ending. If anyone knows where Elarin's song sleeps, it is here. Elowen's heart pounded. She tightened her grip on the satchel at her side, bracing herself as they reached the summit. The air felt different here, sharp yet weightless, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. The awakening of feathers. A sudden gust swept across the cliff, scattering hundreds of feathers into the air. They spiraled upward like a storm of living light, forming swirling patterns around Elowen and Selune. From within the whirlwind came a deep, resonant hum, low at first, then rising into an ethereal melody. The feathers gathered into the shape of a colossal bird, its wings woven from starlight and its eyes glowing like molten amber. The feathered oracle had awakened. Greater than, little dreamer, the oracle's voice echoed through their minds rather than their ears. Why do you climb to the edge of the world? Elowen swallowed, summoning every ounce of courage. "I've come for the song," she said softly but firmly. "The tree Elarin waits in silence, and the land beneath it fades. I need to find the melody it has forgotten." The oracle tilted its shimmering head, feathers rippling like rivers of light. "Greater than, the tree's silence is not its own," it rumbled. "The song was stolen, hidden where earth and sky no longer touch." Selune stepped forward, her silver cloak fluttering. "Then tell us where to find it," she pleaded. "The valley cannot endure much longer without it." A test of sky and heart. The oracle's vast gaze settled on Elowen, piercing as starlight. "Greater than, to seek the song is to seek yourself," it intoned. "I cannot tell you where it lies, but I can show you what must be done." It lowered one enormous wing, scattering feathers that glimmered like fallen constellations. Each feather seemed to carry a faint note of music, forming an incomplete harmony. "Greater than, touch the feather that calls to you," the oracle said. "Only then will the path open." Elowen hesitated, her fingers hovering over the glowing feathers. Some sang softly, others thrummed like distant thunder, but one, just one, beat in time with her heart. She picked it up carefully. The moment her fingertips touched its surface, the feather dissolved into liquid light and surged into her chest. Suddenly, her senses exploded. She heard rivers singing beneath the earth, winds whispering across distant seas, and a faint, aching note buried deep beneath Elarin's roots. She gasped, clutching her chest as Selune steadied her. "Greater than, the melody sleeps in a place where memories go to hide," Elowen whispered, dazed. "Beneath stone, beneath silence, beneath forgetting." The oracle dipped its head in approval. "Greater than, the path to the hollow of forgotten echoes has revealed itself to you," it said. "But beware, the one who caged the song watches still." The shadow's warning. Before Elowen could ask more, the sky above them darkened unnaturally. A cold, biting wind screamed across the cliff. From the far horizon, a jagged shadow stretched like a claw, swallowing the fading sunlight. Selune's voice trembled as she whispered. "Greater than, the keeper of silent seasons, he knows we are close." The feathered oracle unfurled its enormous wings, creating a shield of glowing feathers that blocked the approaching darkness. Its voice was solemn, grave. "Greater than, go now, little dreamer. Take the path revealed to your heart. Find the song before silence consumes all." Elowen tightened her grip on Selune's hand. She didn't know if she was ready, but she knew she couldn't turn back. Somewhere deep below the veil, hidden beneath stone and shadow, Elarin's lost melody waited for her. And Elowen was determined to bring it home. Where secrets sleep in silence, and melodies are carved into memory. The mist of the Vale of Whispering Winds grew heavier that night, clinging to Elowen's cloak as she and Selune followed the trail of faint glowing runes carved into the earth. Each step led them closer to the ancient heart of the valley, a place whispered about in forgotten tales. The feathered oracle's prophecy echoed in Elowen's mind. "Greater than, beneath the weight of silence lies the song. Entombed in stone, where shadows belong. When heart meets heart, and light is freed, the tree shall awaken, and the world shall breathe." Selune drifted beside her, her form glowing faintly like moonlight scattered on water. "This is where we find it," she murmured softly, her voice barely louder than the rustling wind. "The source of Elarin's silence. The song is here, trapped below." Elowen stepped into a circular clearing where the roots of the ancient tree spread like a vast labyrinth, vanishing beneath a flat slab of black stone carved with runes older than any she'd seen. Its surface pulsed faintly with silver light, alive, but restrained, like a heartbeat trapped in chains. The Stone of Echoes. Elowen knelt and placed her hand upon the cold surface. Immediately, the world blurred. She saw flashes, memories not her own. A time when Elarin sang freely, its voice carrying across the land, summoning rains, coaxing flowers into bloom, and binding seasons into harmony. But then came the silence. A dark figure cloaked in frost and shadow, the keeper of silent seasons, who struck chains around the song, locking it away within this stone. Elowen gasped and pulled back. Her chest heaved. "Selune, it's here. The keeper sealed it. But how do we free it?" Selune floated to the runes, her fingertips grazing the carved symbols. "The song isn't just a sound, Elowen. It's a living memory. To awaken it, the heart must resonate with the tree's essence. The trial of resonance. Suddenly, the stone trembled beneath them. A voice emerged, deep, ancient, sorrowful. Greater than, who seeks the song that silence bound? Elowen swallowed hard but steadied her voice. I am Elowen of Greenvale. I seek the song, to awaken Elarin and heal this valley. The voice rumbled like distant thunder. Greater than, then your heart must sing. Not with words, but with truth. Before Elowen could respond, a blinding light burst from the stone, pulling her consciousness inward. She found herself standing in a vast, dreamlike realm, a chamber of shimmering glass, where each fragment reflected a memory from her life. Moments of joy, fear, loss, and hope. Selune's voice echoed faintly from somewhere distant. Elowen, this is the resonance trial. To unlock the song, you must face the deepest silence within yourself. Elowen's heartbeat. She moved through the chamber, her reflection multiplying endlessly. Each fragment whispered, greater than, you're not enough. You will fail them. The tree will never sing again. Her chest tightened. These were her own fears, given voice. But then, through the cacophony, Elowen heard another sound. Soft, faint, familiar. A lullaby. She remembered her mother's song, the melody she used to hum when Elowen was small and afraid of the dark. It was gentle, steady, and filled with love. Elowen closed her eyes and hummed the tune, letting her voice fill the endless chamber. And then, the fragments stilled. The voices vanished. The melody reverberated through the glass until it became one harmonious note that cracked the illusion apart. When Elowen opened her eyes, she was back in the clearing. The song awakes. The black stone beneath her hands glowed like molten silver. The runes flared brilliantly, and a low, resonant hum rose from within, not chaotic, but beautifully balanced, like a heartbeat syncing with the earth itself. Selune smiled faintly, her eyes glimmering like twin moons. You did it, Elowen, the song is free. But the relief was short-lived. The moment the melody stirred, the skies above the vale darkened violently. Winds howled, and a chilling voice rolled across the land. Greater than, so, you dare unbind what I silenced. It was the keeper of silent seasons. Awakened, enraged, Selune's glow flickered. He knows. He's coming, Elowen. Elowen looked to the tree, its bark glowing faintly now, its branches trembling like a creature waking from slumber. She stood tall, steadying her breath. We've freed the song, she whispered, but now, we have to protect it. Elowen stood beneath Elarin's ancient canopy, her hand resting on the gnarled bark that had witnessed countless forgotten centuries. The soft vibration beneath her palm had grown stronger with each passing moment, like the heartbeat of something awakening from an endless dream. Selune's spirit hovered nearby, her silver form shifting like mist around the roots. The air was heavy with anticipation, as if the entire vale was holding its breath. Greater than, Elowen, Selune whispered softly, you've brought the final fragment of the melody here, now, the song must be remembered. Elowen closed her eyes, clutching the feathered talisman given by the oracle in Chapter 7. She felt its warmth seeping into her fingers, pulsing like a living thing. Suddenly, the wind shifted. A low hum rolled through the earth, deep and ancient, shaking the soil beneath her feet. The roots trembled as if stretching for the first time in ages. Across the vale, the rivers quivered and the air filled with thousands of tiny motes of silver light, swirling around the tree. Greater than, I don't know the song, Elowen whispered, her voice trembling. You don't have to, Selune replied gently. The song has always been inside you. Taking a deep breath, Elowen lifted her face to the glowing canopy and began to hum. At first, it was soft, a hesitant melody carried on a fragile voice. But the tree responded. Its trunk resonated, vibrating in harmony, filling the vale with deep, resounding tones like the strumming of a giant harp. The hum became a melody, the melody became words, and the words wove themselves into the air like living threads. Greater than, where rivers sleep and stars forget. My roots remember, my heart has wept. Awaken now, O silent skies. Sing again where beauty lies. The vale came alive. The rivers began to flow once more, sparkling as though woven from molten glass. Petals burst from the dry soil, covering the ground in fields of silver and gold. Creatures of the forest stepped out from the shadows, their eyes glowing faintly, as though they, too, remembered an ancient dream. And Elarin sang. Its branches swayed though there was no wind, and from deep within its heart came a sound unlike anything Elowen had ever heard. 1,000 voices layered into one, a harmony so pure and powerful it filled every corner of the vale. Selune's spirit wept silently, her translucent form shimmering brighter than ever before. Greater than, you did it, she whispered. You freed the song, and me. Elowen turned to her, tears streaking her cheeks. Greater than, but it wasn't just me, she said softly. The song waited for someone who believed, and I believed. Selune smiled, her form dissolving gently into threads of silver light that wove themselves into Elarin's glowing branches. And for the first time in centuries, the Vale of Whispering Winds was whole again. Elowen stood quietly at the roots, listening as the song faded into a soft, lingering hum. It was no longer a secret, no longer forgotten. The tree would never be silent again. The song lingered, a delicate hum woven into the air, settling into the roots, the rivers, and the winds. Elarin stood resplendent, its branches alive with shimmering ribbons of gold and silver. It was as though the ancient tree had breathed life back into the Vale of Whispering Winds itself. Elowen fell to her knees at the tree's roots, exhausted yet overwhelmed by the beauty unfurling before her eyes. Where once the land had withered, now life returned in waves. Dry soil blossomed with vibrant flowers, their petals glowing faintly beneath the soft morning light. Crystal-clear streams cut through emerald meadows, and wild creatures emerged from hidden burrows, their fur and feathers dusted with glittering motes of magic. For the first time in centuries, the vale breathed again. Selune's spirit hovered nearby, faint and translucent, her voice like the last note of a fading song. Greater than, this is what it was meant to be, she whispered. The valley always dreamed of singing again. Elowen turned to her, her eyes shimmering. Greater than, and you'll stay. Selune shook her head softly, a bittersweet smile gracing her fading form. Greater than, I am part of the song now, Elowen. My place is within Elarin, where I can guide its melody forever. But you must be its keeper. The weight of those words settled on Elowen's heart. She was no longer just a wanderer or an outcast. She was now the keeper of the song, entrusted with protecting the magic that had been lost for ages. A soft breeze swept through the vale, carrying with it whispers of voices long gone, the echoes of those who had once called this place home. The song had not only awakened the valley's beauty, it had mended its memories. The winds carried laughter, fragments of lullabies, and distant echoes of ancient festivals. The past and present intertwined seamlessly beneath Elarin's radiant branches. Elowen rose to her feet, brushing the tears from her cheeks. She touched the tree's glowing bark and whispered, Greater than, thank you, for trusting me. In response, Elarin's branches shifted, and from their movement, tiny lights drifted downward, dancing like soft fireflies before settling gently on the ground. Wherever they touched, new life sprouted instantly, lilies, violets, and luminous orchids unfurled in moments, carpeting the valley in waves of living color. Selune's final words echoed faintly as her form dissolved into silver threads. Greater than, as long as someone believes in the song, the valley will never fall silent again. And then, she was gone. Elowen stood quietly for a long moment, listening to the harmony that now thrummed through every leaf, every stream, every gust of wind. It was not just Elarin's song anymore, it was the song of the entire valley. She gazed across the horizon where the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and lavender, and whispered to herself. Greater than, the valley dreams again, and so do I. Above her, the constellations shifted faintly, forming new shapes, not of loss, but of renewal. The valley that had once been forgotten was now alive, thriving, and forever singing. Moral lesson: glowing star. Even when something seems broken or forgotten, it carries within it the seed of hope. With patience, courage, and faith, we can awaken beauty where silence once lived, and remind the world that dreams never truly die. For more motivation fairytale stories, please like, share and subscribe this channel. Thanks and God bless.